The curtains were gone. I don't know why that's what got me. Not the missing television. Not the stripped shelves. Not even the echo in the hallway where there used to be picture frames of us fake smiling in Vermont or standing stiff at someone else's wedding. It was the empty curtain rod swaying slightly in the breeze that made me finally sit down on the floor and let my knees give out. Because she took the curtains. She left the toothbrush holder, the bent spoon I used for cereal every morning, and the pile of junk mail I never bothered to sort through. But she took the curtains, the ones I had ironed for 2 hours before her mom visited last Christmas because they wrinkle funny when the heat's on. The ones we argued about because I said light beige looked like dirty snow, and she said I had the taste of a basement raccoon. She took the curtains and left me the smell of lemon cleaner. I still thought she might come back that night. Honestly, I even took out the recycling. That's how delusional I was. I figured maybe she'd explain everything in one of her cold, clipped sentences like she always did. Maybe she'd smile weirdly and say it was a prank. Maybe the guy from work, what was his name again? Mason? Madison? Was just helping her move her desk, not her life. But then I saw the letter. It was taped to the fridge where the grocery list used to be. In her tight, sharp handwriting. The sale finalized. Please don't make this more difficult than it has to be. You'll be fine, Elwood. The sale. Finalized. I thought she meant the couch or maybe her car. Not the house. Not my house. But then I checked the cabinet where the home documents used to be, and it was bare. And then I called the bank. And then I remembered the night she'd asked me to sign some refinancing stuff, and how I'd been half asleep in front of a rerun of Antiques Roadshow and just scribbled my name without reading a word. That was the moment I laughed. Out loud. A single, pathetic bark of disbelief. Because only someone like me would give away their entire home while wearing pajama pants and microwaving leftover meatloaf. She sold it. Legally. Quietly. Efficiently. Then she ran off to Tampa. With her boss. And left me the bent spoon. There's something humiliating about being robbed slowly, in plain sight, by the person who kisses your forehead before bed. I didn't even notice it happening. She peeled me off layer by layer until I was just a man in a hollow building with lemon cleaner in his lungs and no curtains to hide behind. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 2 days later when the real estate agent called me and asked me to move out because the new owners were arriving Sunday. And that's when I found the folder in the crawl space, the one she forgot to take with her, the one with the real reason she left. The reason this isn't just a divorce. It's something else. And if you think I'm exaggerating, wait until I tell you what was inside. I didn't touch the folder for a day. It sat there on the floor like it might bite me if I got too close. It was covered in dust and labeled with just one word in permanent marker: backups. There was nothing else in the crawl space. No boxes, no storage bins, not even a single Christmas ornament. Just that one folder like it had been waiting for me all along. And still, I couldn't bring myself to open it right away. Maybe I already knew it would change everything. Maybe I just needed one more night to pretend things weren't as bad as they felt. But the next morning, I sat down on the floor with a coffee cup I had no appetite for, opened the folder, and flipped through what looked like bank statements at first. And then I saw the first name that didn't belong to either of us. Mason Derrick. Her boss. The one she apparently ran off with. His name was listed not just on wire transfers, but on a joint account created 2 months ago. Under his address. A second house in Florida. Paid in full. By both of them. She wasn't just running to someone new. They had planned this. Together. For months. Maybe longer. And then I saw something else. An appraisal form for my house. Signed. Photocopied. And notarized. 2 months before she ever told me we were refinancing. So, yeah, that refinancing trick? It wasn't last minute. It was strategy. She didn't just wake up one day and decide to leave me. She built her escape. Brick by brick. Lie by lie. Right under my nose. But the folder had one more surprise in it. Tucked behind the paperwork was a USB stick in a cheap plastic sleeve labeled simply, Insurance. My hand actually shook as I plugged it into the side of my laptop. A folder popped up immediately. Inside? Audio recordings. Dozens. Each labeled by date. The first one started playing automatically, her voice, cold and matter-of-fact. I told him we were refinancing. He didn't even read it. He trusts me too much. That's the problem. Another file. Once the sale's done, I'll move in with you. He won't fight it. He's soft. He folds. And another, more recent. I'm only staying long enough to close it legally. Then I'm out. He'll cry into his cereal, probably. I'll block him and he'll get the message. My ears rang. My mouth went dry. That voice, the one I'd heard say, "I love you," 100 times, was now laughing about how easy it was to gut me financially and emotionally. How predictable I'd be. How weak. She planned to disappear and watch me collapse from a beach house in Tampa. I thought I'd heard the worst of it. But no. The last file was different. There was a second voice. Male. Confident. Southern drawl. Maybe. Mason. Does he know about the second mortgage yet? He asked. No. He won't figure it out. He never asks questions. Honestly, I could tell him I bought a dolphin and he'd say, "That's nice, dear." And then they both laughed. Laughed. That broke something in me I didn't know could break. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even theft. It was cruelty. Deliberate, sharp-edged cruelty, premeditated, shared, and rehearsed like some awful inside joke. I sat on the floor with that laptop open for hours. The coffee went cold. The daylight shifted. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I kept thinking, they knew exactly how to wreck me. And I let them. But that night, something strange happened. I got a text. Unknown number. Just one line. "You don't know everything, Elwood. Meet me tomorrow. Alone." I stared at it for 5 minutes, thinking maybe it was a scam. But something about the tone felt personal, like whoever sent it knew me. Like they'd been watching this unfold too. And just like that, a story I thought had reached rock bottom suddenly had a trapdoor. I didn't know it yet, but things were about to go far deeper than divorce, betrayal, and real estate. Because what Rosalind left behind wasn't just proof of what she did. It was proof that someone else had been pulling strings too. And the next day, I found out who. I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't shut off. That text, "You don't know everything, Elwood. Meet me tomorrow. Alone," kept playing on a loop in my head. Who knew my name? Who would reach out now, after everything had already detonated around me? And what was it I didn't know? I thought I'd already scraped the bottom of this misery. But apparently, I was still falling. I didn't tell anyone. Not my brother. Not the one friend I still had left who hadn't taken Rosalind's side. I figured if this was a scam, I'd know fast enough. But if it wasn't, if this was something real, I didn't want to risk losing it. Because when you're completely gutted and hollowed out, you cling to anything that feels like a thread, even if it's made of fire. The address in the second message came just after sunrise, a rundown diner on the edge of town, the kind of place that looked like it hadn't updated its menu since the Reagan administration. I got there 10 minutes early, ordered a black coffee I couldn't taste, and sat in a cracked vinyl booth watching the door. My hands were still shaking when she walked in. I didn't recognize her at first. Tall, blonde, but not naturally, her roots showed a dark brown that matched her heavy eyebrows. Black leather jacket, red lipstick. She looked like someone who used to care about being noticed, but now just wanted to get in and out of rooms without anyone remembering her. She scanned the diner like she expected someone to be following her, then slid into the seat across from me and said my name like a funeral bell. Elwood. I swallowed hard. You sent the text? She nodded. Name's Taryn. I used to work with Rosalind. Kind of. You could say I was a temporary assistant at the company. Contract? Under Mason. I blinked, not quite processing what she meant. She sighed and leaned in, lowering her voice. I know what they did to you. I know about the house, the recordings, the bank stuff. But what you don't know is that you're not the only one. You were just the last piece. And with that sentence, the floor under me cracked open again. Taryn pulled out a flash drive and set it on the table like it was poisoned. You need to listen to this. But not here. Not now. And not on any computer they've ever touched. I stared at the little silver stick and tried to find my voice. Why are you helping me? She tilted her head. Because I made a mistake. A big one. And I thought if I helped them, I'd get a payout too. But they used me. Same as they used you. Except I didn't lose a house. I lost my name. What's on it? I asked, not really sure I wanted the answer. She paused. Proof Mason's not just your wife's new fling. He's a professional manipulator. It's what he does. He targets people like you, like I used to be. People with assets. Quiet people. Ones who don't fight back right away. I laughed under my breath. So I'm a walking stereotype. No, she said. You're bait. That word made me cold. I suddenly felt like I wasn't in a diner anymore, but in a trap I'd wandered into barefoot. She leaned in closer. They've done this before. For times that I know of. Each time, a woman seduces a man with property or pension, the paperwork gets quietly rewritten, and by the time he notices, it's over. Mason stays clean. The women take the fall if anything gets messy. They vanish. New name. New city. I looked away. Outside, the clouds were gathering like they were trying to smother the sun. Rosalind never mentioned anything like that. She barely mentioned Mason at all until he was suddenly everything. Taryn gave me a tired smile. That's the point. If she told you, you might have had a chance to stop it. I stared at the flash drive. My first instinct was to throw it out the window. I didn't want to know more. I already couldn't look at myself in the mirror without feeling like I'd let a stranger burn my whole life down while I held the door open for her. But now I knew this wasn't just personal. It was calculated. They picked me. They planned me. And if that drive had any chance of proving it, I had to see it through, even if I wasn't ready for what I might find. Taryn stood to leave. Don't contact me again, she said. They're watching everything. If they know you talk to me, they'll make your life harder than it already is. Harder than losing my home and my wife? I asked, half laughing. She paused. They haven't taken your identity yet. Or your savings. That's next. You still have time. But not much. I didn't go home right away. I drove to a rest stop off the highway and sat in the parking lot, staring at the flash drive on my passenger seat like it might sprout legs and bite me. Then I remembered Rosalind's laugh on those recordings, the way she said I was soft, like it was a punchline. No more being soft. No more hoping someone would come fix it for me. This time, I was going to plug that thing in, hit play, and hear every single truth they tried to bury. What I didn't know was that inside that flash drive wasn't just evidence, it was a recording they never meant to make. One that would change everything. The parking lot of that rest stop might as well have been a courtroom. My hands hovered over the flash drive like I was holding a live wire. There were no witnesses. No one to stop me. No one to explain what I was about to hear. And for the first time in this whole mess, I had to decide whether I was ready to know the truth, not just about Rosalind, but about how much of my life had been quietly stolen piece by piece while I kept telling myself, she's just busy. I drove back to my brother's place, the only roof I had left, and waited until he left for work. I didn't want anyone near me when I listened. I needed to fall apart in private if it came to that. I booted up an old laptop I hadn't used in years, the kind you have to jiggle the charger to get it to turn on, and made sure it had no connection to Wi-Fi. I plugged in the flash drive and opened the folder. There were only 3 files. Just 3. The first one was labeled, Prep. I clicked it, and a video popped up. It was grainy and dimly lit, like it had been recorded by a webcam someone didn't know was running. And there they were, Rosalind and Mason, sitting at a table in what looked like a hotel room. She had her hair tied back. He was wearing a sweatshirt with the logo of the company she worked at. They weren't cuddling or touching. They weren't even smiling. They were working, mapping out what they were going to do. Like criminals reviewing blueprints. We'll say it's for refinancing, she said calmly, flipping through a stack of documents. I'll handle the signature. He never reads anything. He trusts me too much. Mason nodded like they were finalizing an order for takeout. The bank's already prepped. The lawyer's expecting the request. Once it's signed, we give it 60 days before escrow clears. In that time, you play nice. Don't push him. Don't make it suspicious. And after, she asked. After the wire transfer hits, we ghost. You vanish, and I'll handle the switch to Florida. She laughed short, cold, almost bored. He'll cry for a while. Then he'll probably write about it on some sad forum. That one line cracked something deep inside me. She hadn't just planned to leave. She'd mocked the idea that I might feel pain at all, like I was a character in a sitcom whose suffering was background noise. The second file was labeled, Fallout. Another video. This one, dated 2 weeks ago, 3 days before she told me the house had been sold. She was on a call. Again, she didn't know she was being recorded. The camera seemed hidden behind a picture frame or lamp. He's still clueless, she said into the phone, pacing the room. He made me toast yesterday. Said he was proud of how hard I was working. I almost felt bad for a second. Mason's voice on the other end replied, Don't. He's a mark, Rose. You're doing what we always do. I know, she sighed. It's never taken this long. He was boring, but stable. I could have stayed if we didn't need the asset. But Mason, Tampa's going to be worth it, right? Absolutely, he said. We're flipping this whole setup into something bigger. He's the last one. After this, we don't need to do it again. She laughed again. Good. I'm tired of pretending I care. I closed the laptop, my whole body numb. I hadn't cried in years. Not at funerals. Not at my father's hospital bedside. But now I sat on a second-hand mattress in a house that didn't belong to me, holding my chest like I was trying to keep my ribs from cracking open. This wasn't betrayal. This was performance. She hadn't just stopped loving me, she'd used me like a step stool and walked over my life with clean shoes. She had rehearsed lines. She had backup plans. She knew when I woke up, when I worked, when I was most distracted. She knew me better than I knew myself, and she weaponized every inch of it. But the third file was the one that changed everything. It was labeled, slip. This time, it wasn't Rosalind or Mason speaking. It was someone else. A man I didn't recognize. The audio was crackly, almost like it had been picked up from a distance. You could hear traffic in the background. And then, clear as day. You sure he doesn't know about the trust fund? Mason's voice answered. He doesn't. She didn't tell him. It's under her maiden name. He thinks the Florida house was bought in cash from our bonuses. That's why he's useful. He thinks he still owns something. You better watch it. If that account gets traced, they'll link it to the others. There's a pattern now. Too clean. Mason replied, then we make sure this one vanishes like the rest. No paper trail. If he figures it out, we scrub it and go. Trust fund. Multiple accounts. The others. Suddenly, I understood what Taryn meant. This wasn't just a twisted con between lovers. It was a system. Organized. And I wasn't the first. I didn't know what scared me more, that I might be the last, or that I wasn't. And now that I had this evidence, I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a liability. They'd left me behind because they thought I was too weak to fight. They might come back just to make sure I stayed that way. I didn't leave the room for the rest of the day. I didn't eat. I didn't even shower. I just sat there replaying that final audio clip, over and over, until the words felt carved into my brain. Trust fund. Paper trail. If he figures it out, we scrub it and go. I kept asking myself one question I couldn't let go of. What did they mean by scrub it? Were they talking about disappearing quietly? Or about making me disappear? For the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't just sad anymore. I was afraid. Really, truly afraid. I was a man who'd never broken a law, never been in a fight, never so much as parked in a handicapped spot without guilt, and now I had audio of people talking like I was a variable that needed to be handled. I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't know who to trust. I didn't know if going to the police would help or make things worse. All I knew was that the people who had gutted my life weren't amateurs. They were careful. They were practiced. And they had done this before. By the next morning, I was barely functioning. My brother asked if I was okay, and I told him I had the flu just to get him to leave me alone. I needed space to think. I needed a plan. And I knew I couldn't confront Rosalind directly. Not yet. She'd deny everything, maybe even turn it back on me. I could already hear her voice saying something like, "You've always been paranoid, Elwood." That's why I left. So instead, I called Taryn. From a burner phone I picked up that morning at a gas station 3 towns over. She picked up on the second ring and said nothing. Just silence. I listened to the recordings, I said. All of them. Still silence. I want to know everything. Who else? What else? What exactly are they doing with these accounts? Finally, she spoke. You're not going to like it. And if you dig any deeper, they'll know. They always know. I already listened to them talk about making me disappear, I said. I think it's a little late to play it safe. She cursed under her breath, then muttered, Fine. Meet me at the storage lot off Route 58. Unit 214. 10 o'clock tonight. And Elwood? If you see a black Ford SUV parked nearby, drive away. Fast. The call ended. I showed up at 9:40. The storage facility was one of those half-abandoned places on the edge of the county line, surrounded by rusted fences and flickering sodium lights. I parked a block away and walked the rest on foot. No black SUVs. No movement. Just cold wind and the rattling of metal doors. When I got to Unit 214, it was already open. Inside was a single folding chair, a lantern, and 3 dusty cardboard boxes. Taryn stood with her arms crossed, eyes hollow like someone who hadn't slept in a month. She didn't say hello, just opened the first box. Inside were documents. Hundreds of them. Different names, different properties, different states. Marriage licenses, mortgage papers, trust transfers. Some had yellow sticky notes on them with names I didn't recognize. Grant and Sarah, 2016, Michigan. Noah and Kay, 2019, Oregon. Each one looked like a perfectly legal relationship, on paper. They ran this place 6 times in the last 10 years, she said, rifling through the folders. Different women each time, always connected to Mason through his consulting firms. The same cycle: build trust, tie assets together, then liquidate and vanish. I couldn't stop staring. It was like a graveyard made of paperwork, and each folder represented a man like me. Someone who probably thought they were just unlucky in love, not realizing they were the target of an organized operation. Why haven't the police stopped them? I asked. Taryn shook her head. Because on paper, none of this is illegal. These women had joint ownership. They signed everything legally. The men they robbed didn't know they were being set up until it was over, and none of them had hard proof Mason was involved. Until now. She handed me one last folder, thicker than the rest. My name was on the tab. Elwood Granger. Victim number 7. Inside were copies of my house deed, emails between Rosalind and Mason, and something I'd never seen before: a scanned application for a loan taken out against the house before the refinance. Dated 3 months ago, with my forged signature. I felt sick. Why are you showing me this? I whispered. Because you're the first one who didn't just roll over and disappear, she said. And if we move carefully, you could be the one who breaks it all wide open. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a guy who still kept a drawer full of Rosalind's old birthday cards because he couldn't bring himself to throw them away. But now I understood. I wasn't just the end of their story. I was the beginning of something else. As I left the unit and walked back through the dark lot, I felt a cold weight settle over me. They thought I was weak. They thought I was done. But the only thing worse than a man who cries over betrayal is the one who finally stops. I didn't sleep that night. Again, every time I closed my eyes, I saw that folder, my name printed neatly on the tab like I was just another file in some twisted cabinet of broken lives. I saw the forged signature, the cold planning in Rosalind's emails, the numbered list Taryn had shown me of other victims who'd been erased, not with violence, but with paperwork and perfect timing. And the most brutal part? I wasn't even special. I was just number 7. By morning, I wasn't scared anymore. I was humiliated and angry in the kind of dull, hollow way that doesn't show up in your voice, but in the way your hands shake when you're brushing your teeth. I was starting to realize that the version of me Rosalind had spent years cultivating, the passive, dependable, apologetic man who didn't read fine print, wasn't just who she preferred. It was who she needed me to be, so I'd never question what she was really doing. But now I had something she didn't plan for: proof. Not just of betrayal, but of intentional, calculated fraud. And for the first time since she walked out that door, I had leverage. The only question was what to do with it. Going to the police felt like tossing a pebble into the ocean. Even with the flash drive, even with the documents, there were no direct ties between Mason and the financial crimes. Everything was layered, rerouted, insulated. The one person who could burn it all down from the inside was Rosalind, and there was no way she'd talk. Not unless I gave her a reason to. That's when the idea hit me. If I couldn't bring Mason down through the front door, I'd drag Rosalind through the back. I still had access to our old joint email account, one of those ancient ones we only used for bills and birthday coupons. She must have forgotten it existed, or assumed I'd deleted it. But it was still linked to her phone's cloud backup from months ago. I spent hours sifting through auto-uploads, voice memos, screenshots, even deleted photos. And that's when I found the jackpot. A picture of Rosalind in a hotel bathroom mirror, and Mason lying shirtless in the background. Timestamped. Dated. Taken 2 weeks before the sale of the house. Clear evidence of a relationship during the window when she swore we were working on us. Better yet, the photo's metadata still contained location data. A hotel in Savannah, Georgia, booked under an alias Mason had used before, the same one on 2 other property documents Taryn showed me. That was it. The thread. I knew what I had to do. I booked a flight that night under a different name. Paid in cash. Left my brother a vague note about clearing my head. I didn't even pack a bag. Just a laptop, a USB drive with the evidence, and the photo printed twice. One copy for me, one for whoever might need convincing. I landed in Savannah the next morning, jittery, underfed, and unsure of what exactly I was walking into. But I had a plan. The hotel was still operating, still cheap, still run by a manager who didn't ask many questions, especially not when you pretended to be a guy trying to piece together a surprise anniversary weekend and wanted to know which room your wife had liked last time. A few bucks and a sad story got me what I needed: surveillance access from the lobby cameras, stored locally and barely reviewed. I spent half a day in a back office with an overworked assistant manager, scanning files from 3 months ago. And then I found it. Rosalind and Mason, arm in arm, checking in. Same date as the photo. Same smiles. I had them. Back at the motel, I opened my laptop and drafted a message. Not to the police. Not to the media. To Rosalind. You planned every step. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I wouldn't fight. I've got the photos, the surveillance, the audio, the contracts. And now you have a choice. Come clean or watch the whole thing unravel. You have 48 hours. Don't test me. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. I sent it from the same joint email she thought was long forgotten. Within 5 minutes, the message was opened. 10 minutes after that, my burner phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Elwood. It was her. Voice trembling. Not angry. Not confident. Scared. You read it, I said flatly. What do you want? She whispered. I want to know why, I said. You don't get to walk away without saying it. Not after all this. There was a pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. It wasn't supposed to go this far. You were just supposed to let go quietly. Like the others. That word again. Others. Rosalind, I said carefully, you're out of time. You either help me take him down, or I take both of you with me. This isn't a game anymore. And then, after another long silence, she said it. I'll talk. But not over the phone. Meet me where it started. Where what started? Our marriage, she said. The lake house. Sunday. Come alone. The lake house. She hadn't mentioned that place in years. It was where we spent our first summer together. Where we'd carved our initials into the deck. Where I thought I first saw love in her eyes. But now, I didn't know what I was walking into. A confession? A trap? Or the final move in a game I'd never known I was playing. I drove to the lake house in a borrowed car, my heartbeat punching through my chest the entire way. The clouds had started to gather the moment I hit the highway, and by the time I turned down the old gravel path leading to the water, the sky looked like it was holding its breath. It was the kind of heavy silence I hadn't felt since my dad's funeral, like something huge was about to happen, but nobody wanted to be the first to say it. The lake house hadn't changed much. Still the same chipped paint, same screen door with the crooked hinge, same cracked stepping stone that always tripped you if you weren't paying attention. But it felt smaller now. Or maybe I'd just outgrown whatever version of me thought this place held something sacred. Back then it had been our dream retreat. Now it was a ghost in wood and nails. Her car was already parked off to the side when I arrived. Not the sleek white SUV Mason had leased her before the move, but her old Corolla, the one I thought she'd traded in months ago. That alone made me uneasy. I stepped onto the porch and noticed the welcome mat was flipped upside down. That seemed deliberate. I knocked once. No answer. Then I tried the handle. It opened. Inside, the air was stale, like it hadn't been touched in months. Dust floated in slants of gray light. The furniture was all still there. Our old couch with the sagging cushions, the wooden bookcase with the uneven legs, even the scratched-up coffee table I once sliced my thumb on trying to fix. Everything looked like it remembered me. Everything but her. Rosalind was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with her back to the door. She was wearing a heavy sweater, sleeves pulled down past her wrists, and her hair, usually straight and polished, hung in a loose, tangled braid down her back. She didn't turn around when she spoke. You came alone? Yes, I said. You said you'd talk. She sighed, still not facing me. I didn't think you'd really do it. I thought you'd throw a tantrum, maybe cry to your brother, but disappear like the rest. I took a slow step forward. What do you mean, the rest? What happened to the other men? She finally turned around. Her eyes were red, not from crying from exhaustion, or maybe guilt, or maybe both. And when she looked at me, it wasn't the cruel, smug version of her I'd come to expect in the past month. It was someone hollowed out, flickering between remorse and survival instinct. They were paid off, she said softly. Some took it. Some didn't. Mason had ways of dealing with that. We never touched anyone, but we knew how to make them disappear legally, financially, emotionally. Just enough pressure and they folded. You were supposed to fold, Elwood. I didn't. No, she said, almost admiringly. You didn't. And that's when I realized you weren't the same man I married. You mean the man who trusted you? Who signed whatever you asked him to because he thought love meant believing people at their word? Yes, she said, her voice cracking. That one. A long silence stretched between us. Then I laid the flash drive on the table, along with the printed photo and a second envelope I hadn't shown her yet, the one with the Savannah Hotel's check-in log. matching her alias. I have more. Enough to put both of you under a microscope. But I'm not here to threaten you. She blinked. Then why? Because I want Mason. I want the person pulling all the strings. You can still walk away from this with a little bit of dignity, Rosalind. But only if you help me expose him. You owe me that. She looked down at the table. Her hands trembled. For the first time, she looked truly unsure. I never thought I'd feel anything for you again, she said quietly. But when I saw your email, I was scared. Not of you. Of what Mason would do if he knew I let something slip. That's why I called you here. I froze. What do you mean? I think he suspects I saved something. That I didn't destroy all the records like he told me to. He's been calling from unknown numbers, asking questions. I know that voice when he's nervous. And he's nervous. That changed everything. If Mason felt the walls closing in, he might do something rash. If Rosalind was right, if he thought she was the weak link, then this meeting wasn't just risky. It was dangerous. Where is he now? I asked. I don't know, she said. But if you want to find him, there's a name. He always keeps his money clean through a man named Barrett. Works offshore banking for a small firm in the Caymans. There's a paper trail, barely. But it's there. I made copies. Hid them here. She stood up and moved to the corner cabinet near the back door, pulling out a panel that popped loose to reveal a thin stack of envelopes. She handed them to me. My fingers shook as I flipped through them. Account names, foreign wire transfers, instructions coded in business terms, but clear as day if you knew what to look for. This wasn't just insurance. It was a blueprint. But before I could say anything else, her eyes widened. She stepped back from the window. Elwood, she said, her voice going flat. His car. Down the drive. I didn't tell him I was coming here. My blood went ice cold. You said no one knew. I didn't think he'd follow me. I thought I was careful. We didn't have time to argue. I grabbed the envelope and the flash drive, shoved them both into my jacket, and whispered, "Bathroom. Lock the door. Don't open it unless it's me." She ran. I turned off the lights and slid to the far side of the room just as headlights swept across the front wall. Mason was here. I don't know what happens next. But I know this, for the first time since this all started, I'm not backing down. I'm not the man who signs things without looking anymore. I heard the engine shut off before I even saw him. The way the tires crunched on gravel, slow and deliberate, told me Mason wasn't here to talk. He was here to finish something. Whether it was intimidation, a threat, or worse, I didn't care anymore. I ducked behind the armoire in the far corner of the living room, one hand on my phone, the other on the flash drive now zipped inside my jacket. My heart was thudding in my ears, but my mind was surprisingly clear. I wasn't going to run. Not now. Not after everything he'd taken. The door creaked open. Heavy footsteps entered, slow and cautious. Rose. His voice cut through the darkness. I know you're here. Your car's out front. I stayed quiet. From the angle I was hiding, I could just barely see him. Same smug face, same perfect haircut. But this time, his confidence seemed brittle. His eyes scanned the room in sharp movements. He wasn't calm. He was guessing. Nervous. You didn't answer my calls. That's not like you. I heard the slightest creak from the back of the house, probably Rosalind shifting her weight behind the bathroom door. I prayed she wouldn't move again. I know what you did, I said suddenly, standing from behind the armoire. He spun around like I'd fired a gun. Elwood. His tone went flat. Should have figured you were still crawling around. Wrong again, I said. I've been recording every word since you walked through the door. I held up the phone. He didn't know whether to laugh or lunge, but for the first time, I saw something flicker across his face, uncertainty. Then I stepped forward and threw the printed photo on the floor between us. The hotel mirror photo, followed by a copy of the wire transfers. And finally, the application with my forged signature. You're done, I said. Even if I don't walk out of this house, someone will see this. I've already sent backups to 3 people. If I disappear, they go to the authorities. To the press. You'll be hunted by your own system. He stared at the papers for a long moment, jaw clenched. Then he laughed short, sharp, nervous. You think anyone cares? People like you don't win. You get buried in paperwork until you forget why you started fighting. No, I said. People like me used to get buried. But not anymore. And then, the sound that changed everything, tires on gravel again. Not his. Police. Rosalind had triggered the silent panic feature on her phone, the one I helped her install years ago after she got followed once at the mall. She must have activated it from inside the bathroom. Within moments, the lights outside flooded the yard, voices rang out, and red and blue pulses lit up the walls like a warning. Mason turned to run, but I blocked the hall. Officers stormed the house in seconds. He didn't resist. Maybe he knew it was too late. Maybe he realized the trail was too wide now. Either way, I watched him being walked out in cuffs, his face twisted with frustration, not fear. I knew what that meant. This wasn't just a bad breakup for him. This was the fall of a career built on manipulation. When the police asked me questions, I told them everything. About the refinance, the forged documents, the flash drive, the victims before me. I handed over everything. Rosalind did the same. She didn't try to play innocent. She didn't cry or beg. She just sat with her arms crossed and nodded when they read her rights. I don't know what changed in her. Maybe this was her version of redemption. Maybe she just realized she'd gone too far to keep pretending. The next few months were a blur of depositions, interviews, and hearings. The evidence was enough to trigger investigations in 3 states. Taryn came forward with more documents. 2 of the other victims, men who thought no one would believe them, resurfaced and added their testimony. Piece by piece, the whole operation crumbled. Rosalind took a plea deal. She agreed to testify against Mason in exchange for leniency. She was sentenced to 2 years probation and financial restitution. She sold her stake in the Florida property to help repay what was taken from me, and for once, she didn't hide a thing. Mason didn't get so lucky. He's now facing federal charges for conspiracy, financial fraud, and identity manipulation. His empire is dust. As for me, I started over. With what was left of the restitution and a settlement tied to the fraud, I bought a small fixer-upper on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Every nail, every beam, every window. I go to bed knowing no one can sign it out from under me again. I went back to work at the library maintenance department. The first week, they gave me a welcome-back cake. It was lopsided and had my name spelled Elwood, but I didn't care. It was the first time in months someone was happy to see me for me. Rosalind wrote me a letter a few weeks ago. Just 1 page. No excuses, no sob stories. Just a quiet apology. She said I'd never have to see her again if I didn't want to. I haven't written back. I don't hate her. I don't miss her either. I just don't feel the need to carry her around in my story anymore. This is my life now. Quiet. Small. Honest. And when I vacuum the floor, I do it knowing the house I'm standing in is finally safe. Not because of love, but because I stopped laughing and started listening.